Welcome back to another Ableton tutorial. Lovely to have you here. Big shout out YouTube gang. Big shout out Patreon gang. The support on Patreon really does make a difference. It really helps people like me and other creators keep doing the sort of stuff that we're doing. So thank you so much for everyone supporting over on Patreon. Right, what are we looking at today? Well, I wanted to explore this idea of vector morphing drum breaks. Let's take a listen to what we've got going on here, and we're going to rebuild basically this. There's a bass line. It's doing that. There's these vector morphing drums. We're going to take a look at exactly what I mean by that. And there was also a vector morphing drone thing happening as well. So what do we mean by vector morphing? How do we make this happen? Well, this sounds like something nice to talk over, so let's explain that concept. I prepared a very handy little chart. You can tell I put a lot of time and effort into this little chart here. So, what we mean by vector morphing, what I mean by vector morphing is we take 4 sound sources and we arrange them like this on a graph with an x-axis and a y-axis. And depending on where one little dot that's moving its way through this x and y-axis ends up, we hear sound 1 or sound 2 or a combination of those things. So let me show you exactly what I mean by that. So let's come back to Ableton here. Let's turn the drums back on and let's explore this using the drums. Let's turn that one off. So if I turn these down, so you can see I've got kind of an x and a y axis here, and that's referring to the x and the y axis here. Both of these are in the middle right now, so we're hearing this. We're hearing a combination of all 4 breaks. But if I turn all of these down into, for instance, one corner, so this is now x at -1 and y at -1, so that's over here. So we're hearing break number 3 at the moment. If I was to turn the y all the way up, so now we're hearing x at -1 and y at +1, so x at -1 and y at +1. So now we're hearing break number 1. We've moved x across all the way over here, so now x is at +1 and y is at +1. We're up here now. So you can see that moving these things through, we sort of morph between these different sounds. And then we can set up so that we're sort of randomly morphing between the sounds as well. And levels of randomness that are morphing. I'll quickly show you what's happening over here on the vector drones version as well. Again, we've got an X and a Y, but instead of some random morphing, we're just using LFOs to morph between the 4 sounds here. 2 different LFOs, one for the X and one for the Y axis. And we're getting these sort of slowly undulating changes in texture, which is super nice. Okay, so how do we do that? What's going on? Let's start from the start. I did also prepare these 4 drum breaks in today. If you're wanting to follow on exactly, I'm at 170 BPM. Patreon members will be able to download this entire set at the end of today, including anything that is made out of this. So I prepared 4 drum breaks. They sound like this. As I mentioned, you don't have to use drum breaks to do this. You could use drones, you could use bits of piano, you could use whatever you like. You're adults, you can make your own decisions. But I'm going to show you how to make this using drum breaks, because there's 1 or 2 other techniques in there that I think are also kind of interesting. But yeah, then I'll show you how to convert that into the sort of more droney type as well. So I'm going to right click on this drum break and I'm going to select Slice to New MIDI Track. I'm going to use Ableton's default mode for this, and I'm going to slice by 16th note. So I'm going to hit OK. Did I mention I'm at 170 BPM? I'm at 170 BPM. So now that I've done that, I press play on this. We've already got a MIDI clip and it's playing through the break exactly as you'd expect. We can pitch it up. We can turn the loop on here. Gets these kind of fun effects, and we got attack decay and these sort of things happening as well. Right, so let's press stop on that for now. Now I'm going to select that. I'm going to press Command G. I'm going to turn that into a group. I'm going to hit this little button here and open up the chain settings. Yeah, that's already labeled as break 1. Let's rename this track as well to Vector Borks and breaks. Borks. Let's go with Borks. Vector Borks. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing with break number 2. I'm going to right click. I'm going to slice to new MIDI track. We're going to use the same setting, default setting. We're going to hit OK. But now I'm going to select this. I'm going to press Command X. I'm going to come in on my Vector Borks track where it says drop an instrument or sample here. I'm going to just click once with the left click and press Command V. And we've now put that in there. We can delete this track now, this break 2 track. Right, I'm going to do the same thing for break 3. I'm going to hit slice to new MIDI track. We're going to use default mode. We're going to go OK. We're going to select this. We're going to press Command X. We're going to come over here. We're going to press Command V. And that's done. We're going to delete that. And now we're going to do the same thing for break 4. Of course, we are slice to new MIDI track. 16, we're going to use default mode. We're going to go like this. It could be fun to have one of these samples reversed. I haven't done that. Maybe that's an interesting thing to do already if you're following along and making this. I'm going to come back here and press Command V. I'm going to delete that. Now we can turn this off. Right, I'm going to put these in order because otherwise that's going to annoy me. Maybe it's going to annoy some of you as well if that's not done. Okay, so we've now got 4 breaks in here, and these breaks are all going to be playing exactly the same thing. So if I turn all of these off and I press play on this, so all of these breaks are playing at the same time. Super nice. Let's turn them all back on for now. Calm down. Let's just change this pattern slightly. Let's make it slightly more interesting in the second bar. Let's do this old technique. Let's make it do this. Nice. Let's delete that one and let's delete that one. Right. Let's just listen to that with one of these turned on just so we get a bit of a sense of what that sounds like. Super nice. Right. Let's make these sound a little bit more different. What happens if we pitch this up? That sounded nice. No, it's clicking a bit. What if we turn the loop on? No, I think it's just nice like this. Maybe let's make this one a bit stereo. Let's use the align delay for that. So let's put that in here. Is that in the right place? If I minimize this, yes, that is in the right place. So now this is only going to affect that break. So that's kind of nice and stereo now. Okay, let's make it do a little bit of work on this. Let's do a little bit of EQing because it's kind of crazy in that mid-range there. Let's bring some of this down. Let's take off some of the sub as well. Okay, and the last one. Yeah, let's pitch that one down. Maybe not so far. Okay, let's press stop on that. So we've got 4 slightly different sounding breaks. You can, of course, put a lot more time and effort into that as you like. Right, so now how do we make this situation where it's sort of able to morph between all of these? Well, we're going to need to create a sum of values. We need an X value and a Y value for each of these breaks. And that we're going to do that using utilities. Okay, so how are we now going to create a situation where we can morph between these sounds? Well, we need a sum of the 2 volumes. We need a sum of an X value and a Y value. So let's bring in a utility onto this break 1 channel. In fact, we're going to need 2 utilities. One that's going to be for X, and we're going to just duplicate that. And this one is going to be for Y. So I could immediately open up these, rename this macro X and rename this macro Y, and then I could just map these, map to X, map to Y, constrain the ranges, and we could go. But, well, if I turn these, let's turn these down to 0 so that we don't blow things up right now. The problem with this is that, let's turn these both back up. The problem with this is that dB is a logarithmic scale, and these are linear scales. And what that means is that at the point where things are crossing over, where we're halfway between two of the sounds, 2 of the volumes, we're going to get a real dead zone. So we get almost no sound in this dead zone in the middle. So we need to create a situation where these are actually doing a bit of a logarithmic scale and not a dead zone scale. So I'm going to unmap that from X, and I'm going to unmap that from Y. And to do that, we're going to use a shaper. So I'm going to bring in a shaper device, and we're going to bring that shaper device in front of X. I'm going to press Option, and I'm going to change the curve. So basically, this curve is going to control the volume of this break on the X-axis. So I'm going to change this to unipolar. I'm going to turn this all the way down. I'm going to set this to manual, and I'm going to map this to this to this gain here. So now as I scan through the shaper, we can see that fading out. And we can imagine that that is what's happening over here. Now, I'm going to duplicate this shaper. And I'm going to bring this in over here. So this shaper is going from -1 on the x-axis to +1 on the x-axis. So let's do the same thing with this. This is -1 on the y-axis. Let's turn this gain down. Let's map that to here. So at -1 on the y-axis, that's down here. This should be at 0. So we're going to put this all the way over here, and we're going to go like this. Now we're going to map this to y over there, and we're going to map this to x over there. So let's just check that that is working. With nothing on the y-axis, we're not hearing any of the x, but as I slowly come across here, why is that resetting? Oh, I need to have another point in here. I need to delete this point, shift and delete that point, and I need to do the same here, shift and delete that point. Now, does that stay? Yeah, exactly. So now as we turn off the y-axis here, that's basically we're moving vertically from -1 to +1. Oh, what's going on? From -1 to +1. We are fading in. We're getting that sound. Now, if I do the same on the x-axis, we're at -1. So we can imagine that we're at -1 over here. So this should fade it out. Lovely. So now I just need to repeat this process for the other breaks, but we need to be very careful about that things are fading in and fading out in the right way. So let's turn on break number 2. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to bring in a shaper. We're going to bring in a utility after that shaper, and this is going to be our X. We're going to change this to manual. We're going to change this to unipolar. We're going to change this to all the way down. Those are the default settings that we're going to need. We're going to duplicate that. Right, so we need to map this on. So this is now break number 2. So this is break number 2 up here, and this is the X value. So I want this to fade in as it increases, because we want break number 2 to fade in as we go from -1 to +1 over here. So again, I'm going to now press Option, change that. We're going to map this to here. We're going to press Shift and delete that point, and I'm going to map that to the X-axis over there. I'm going to do the same thing with this. So this is the Y. So I also want it to go from -1 to +1 like that. We're going to right-click. We're going to map. I did that to the wrong one. I did that to the wrong one. You need to be connected to here, and you need to be connected to here. And I'm going to right-click and map that to Y over here. So now we've only got break number 2 turned on. So when Y is at -1, we don't hear it. When Y is all the way up. Oh, I keep forgetting to delete this point. Shift and delete that point. And now when Y is all the way up, we're hearing it. X is at -1, we don't hear it. X is at +1, it's fading in. Now both of them, this should fade between the two of them. Lovely. Now we're hearing both, and this should fade them both out. Lovely. Okay, let's do break number 3. Let's solo it. This is a bit louder, actually. Let's turn that down a little bit to begin with. Again, we're going to bring in a shaper. Going to put a utility after it. Going to turn the utility all the way down. We're going to turn this to unipolar. We're going to turn this to manual. This is our X. Well, let's duplicate that first. Select it. Right, Command D. Rename this X and rename this Y. So in this case, we want it to go from, yes, -1 to +1. This is break number 3. So this is down here. So when X is at -1, we want that all the way down. So we're going to map that, and that's now going to go to here. And now the Y value, also when Y is at -1, down here, we want to hear it. So that we're going to map that to here. And now we map these to X and to Y. Shift and delete these points because we don't need them. And let's make sure that that is working. So when Y is all the way down, we're hearing it. X, we hear it, and it fades out. When it's in, it fades out as we go up. Lovely. Okay, let's do the last one. Again, shaper, utility, on the shaper, we're going to set this to unipolar. We're going to set this to manual mode. We're going to turn this all the way down. We're going to duplicate that. Command D. So now we're looking at this sound here, sound number 4. So on X, we want it to go like this. Oh, not like that. Shift, delete, Option. We do that. And now you go like that. Yep. And on the Y, we want this to be, again, from -1 to +1 like that. We want to map you to here. That's going to be mapped to Y. And this is going to be mapped to X. Okay. So now, these two... Oh. If we turn them all on. So now we're able to morph between the sounds like this. This is really nice. Okay. So, another nice little trick for this. Another nice little trick for this is let's bring in a random device at the start of this whole chain. So I'm going to go MIDI devices random. And it's going to come in here. I'll tell you what, I am going to put an OTT at the end of all of that so we get a bit of leveling, a bit more coherent. So we're going to go in multiband dynamics. Going to bring in OTT. Lovely. Going to bring the amount down and turn the output up. Now, if I use this random chance, so this is changing the incoming MIDI note. Now, don't forget, the incoming MIDI notes are these. So I can randomize the incoming MIDI note a little bit, and we're going to get some kind of stuttering effects. Now, if I do it by 12 semitones, we're going to get it jumping sort of from here to here to here to here. It's not really going to make much sense. So I'm going to make the choices, let's make the choices 3. So now we can hear it occasionally doing these stutter effects. This is really nice. So now we can find ways to modulate between these X and the Y axis. At the start, what I was doing that with an expression control, MIDI effects, expression control, and I was randomizing it. So what we can do is set these both to in the middle, 50% and 50%. And then let's set this to random. Let's set this to random. Unipolar. Map to here. Likewise with this one. Oh, bipolar. Sorry, both bipolar. This is super nice. And we can change the amount of this randomness using this min-max value here. So I'm going to map actually that to macro 3. I'll just map this one to macro 4. So now it's going to stay the same. Get some randomizing. A little bit of randomizing. Yeah. Really nice. Okay. Let's say we want to add a sub underneath this. So like just a big sub, maybe at the start of every bar. That's going to be fun. I'm going to group all of this stuff. Yeah. And I want this to come after the random because I also want it I want it to be responding to the random. So I'm going to turn this instrument rack, including that OTT, into a new group, Command G. And in here, I'm just going to now drag a kick. Let's go to instruments. Let's find the kick device, DS kick. Where have you gone? DS kick. I'm going to press stop on that because otherwise it's going to start triggering all the time. And what I'm going to do is simply use the key constraint to just C1. C1 is the first note in that sequence. So now if we press play again, yeah, we can see that happening. Yeah, super nice. Oh, it skipped it because of the random. Yeah, really nice. Let's put a drum bus at the end of this whole thing. Audio effects drum bus. No, we want that inside the group, inside this whole rack. Yeah, nice. Let's turn up the boom a bit. Transients. No. Just a bit of crunch. Cool. Let's add a snare as well. I'm going to press stop again. Now the snare, we're going to have to do this slightly differently because I want it to happen sort of every time there's a snare happening all the way through the drum break, which is kind of here, which is slice 5, probably again here on whatever slice that is, slice 13, etc., etc. So the way I'm going to do that, first of all, I'm going to find a snare. Let's go to samples here. Let's find a nice snare. You can't hear me auditioning these because it's not coming through the master output. Okay, I found a snare. I found a snare, everybody. Right, and now I'm going to drag in a pitch device, but for that snare. So we're going to go MIDI effects, pitch. We're going to drag that in here. I'm going to group that, Command G, and now I'm actually going to drag that pitch outside of the group. I'll show you why in a second. But I'm going to use these groups again to do the same thing with the key. So I know that slice 4 is going to be C1, C2, there. That's slice 5. That's the first snare drum. And now if I duplicate that, and I just want to move this across 8. So I'll just select it and I press arrow keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do the same thing again, duplicate that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Duplicate that. I think we just need one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so let's press play again. Let's just turn the snare on by itself and see if that is happening. Yeah. Now we can hear the snare doing some crazy pitchy stuff. We're going to use this pitch control to control that because we don't want that. So we're going to make it always hit the note C3. So we're going to go in here. We're going to choose this to be C3. 0 range and just fold everything into that. Lovely. So now we get this snare hitting on top of everything else. Super nice. Okay, let's make this bass line. I'm going to press stop on that. Let's make this bass line. Let's not spend too much time on this, but let's look at how it happened. So I'm going to bring in an instrument. We're going to use an operator for this because it was kind of an FME sounding bassy type thing. So I'm just going to drag this over here. First things first, I'm going to change this to be mono, not poly. And I'm going to use the Snake MIDI device for this. I've mentioned this in tutorials before. This is not a stock Ableton device, but I think it is free to download, or you can donate. You should donate because it's awesome. It's a sequencer. You could use the SQ sequencer or any other sequencer to do this. So I'm going to randomize these notes. Oh, that's already sounding quite interesting, actually. Some of these are a bit high. We probably don't want them to be all high. I'm going to randomize these velocities, and I'm going to randomize these gates as well. Yeah, nice. Now I'm going to bring in a MIDI effect after this Snake device. I'm going to use a note length because I want it to kind of latch and hold any note that... Yeah, so now it's holding notes through those gaps. Right, now I'm going to bring in an expression control and we're going to do some FMing. So the first thing I'm going to do is on this second operator, which is going to do the FMing there. Yeah, let's just random it. Let's just random it. So random here. It's already quite nice. Let's bring in a couple of extra harmonics on this main one. So let's turn on the oscillator here. Let's just bring in something like this. A bit too much. This is nice. Maybe I don't want it doing this latch thing. Maybe I do. Let's turn the filter off. No, let's turn the filter on. Let's make the filter respond to velocity. Nice. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to randomize this direction on this on the gates here. So we're going to get random gates, but the notes are going to stay the same each bar and the velocity is going to stay the same each bar. I'm going to use this expression control to do that. We're going to set you to random. And yeah, let's make it go bipolar, but yeah. Nice. Let's add a raw after that. Let's get a bit of distortion happening there. Bit on the mid-range. Nice. How's it sound without break? Let's randomize these notes again. This is nice. Let's change the modulating waveform. Let's bring it a bit harmonic. Some more harmonics. There we go. Nice. Let's treat the top end a little bit. So I'm going to use one of my little blocks racks, high-low splitter. On the highs, let's just bring in some chorus. Nothing too drastic. Where have you gone? Chorus. Yeah, in here after the highs. Yeah. Nice. Cool. So this is how I made the bass line. This is how I made the vector breaks, the drum rack. Let's look at how to turn this drum rack into now kind of a more of a droney type thing. So let's stop on this. Let's turn that bass line off. I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to rename this drones. So now let's look at how to turn this into somewhat sort of more of a dronesy type thing. So we don't need the kick anymore. We don't need the snare on this anymore. We don't need this random chance. I think that's not going to be helpful. Right. So basically all I'm going to do is come in here and delete each of these breaks racks. Break 2 we can delete. Break 3 we can delete. This expression control we can delete. Break 4 we can delete. And I'm just going to drag some drones into here instead. So I'm going to go down to my samples folder over here, where I've already got some rain highlighted. Let's drag some rain in on there. Let's give that a little bit more gain. And I'm going to go to a drones pack that I made. It's in my modular samples here. This is available on my Patreon, link below if you want to grab this. This is just, I think it's 50 or 60 or maybe a whole bunch more drones that I made. Let's drag that in. That could be nice. Drag in a pentatonic sound field. And let's play a power drill. Sure, let's drag in this power drill drone as well. Now, we want to change this MIDI clip because we don't want it going like doing all these crazy individual notes. We just want this playing C3, I think, for all of them. Yeah, because they're just single note samplers. Now, we're going to make that legato. And in fact, let's make this 4 bars long. And let's make that legato. Let's make it go all the way. Now if I press play on this, yeah, we can hear all of these samples here. And on these macros, where's the macros gone? They're in here. So we can sort of fade between them. Yeah, super nice. Yeah, and let's make it fade between these using LFOs instead of using some kind of random thing. So let's go to audio effects. Let's get rid of this drum bus at the end. We probably don't need that. Let's bring in an LFO in here. We're going to turn the rate all the way down. We're going to duplicate it. We're going to minimize this instrument rack. No, I needed that. Where have you gone? It's in here. We need to connect. Yeah, exactly. We need to connect this to here. And let's make this 50. Ooh, 50. Let's make this 50 and let's map this to here. So now we're fading between. Let's change the rate on this one a little bit so it's a bit quicker. Super nice. We're getting some stops. I think maybe because one of the samples is a bit too short. I'm not going to go and find that now, but you see how this works. Well, maybe let's start this sample a bit more in the middle. Yeah, well, because that's starting with silence. Let's make sure these are all starting with something. There we go. Let's actually give everything a little bit of a fade in. Right click, copy the value to siblings, and a little bit of a fade out. Copy value to siblings. Yeah, really nice. So now you can see how we can use this rack in a completely different way with drones. Or with breaks. Hope you got something from today. This was a super fun technique. I really enjoyed exploring this. I love sharing this stuff with you. I love hearing what you guys are making with these crazy ideas. It's always super different to the ways in which I take them. Please tag me if you're sharing stuff. See you next time.